What's up, nerds? This is a project I've been working on for a little while now. It's an EV conversion of a very old tractor. I've never actually done an EV conversion before, so logically I chose a vehicle that has literally never been done before. But hey, how hard could it be? This is a Model 65 made by Massey Ferguson in the United States of America, and then 60 years later torn apart by some kid on the internet. This Model 65 is in a very sad state. I'm told it does run, but the battery is only at 9 volts despite being on the charger for a few days, so I'll need to swap it out. So out with the old and in with the also old, but at least not dead. It should start right up, but I've been told it might smoke a little. And here we see the diesel engine's natural defense mechanism, covering everything in a thick layer of smoke to make you think twice about replacing it, because you can't replace it if you can't see it. Let's leave it at that. This tire looks like it could blow up at any second. Want some of that?
I'm good.
Did you see all that?
Uh-huh.
I left the fuel cap off and it just sprayed fuel everywhere.
Well, that's a good thing it's diesel. Watch out! Gas canisters behind the wheel.
Oops. Oh well. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can you convert this to electric? That's blasphemy. Just fix it up. I know. Converting the tractor to electric is almost as bad as suggesting we all stop using horse-drawn carriages. So let me show you something. You can go online and find loads of 65s for sale. Feel free to buy as many as you want and not convert them to electric. I'll make sure to shed a tear every time I pass by a gas station without stopping. Or actually, on second thought, go ahead and express your displeasure in the comments. It boosts engagement. As a point of comparison, I wanted to find the top speed of the tractor before and after the conversion, which is what led to this terrifying test. The top speed clocked in at 24 kilometers per hour, which in miles per hour is a different number. But let me tell you, I've gone faster than that on my bicycle, and I've never felt less in control than when I was going 24 kilometers an hour on that tractor. I mean, the steering wheel has about a quarter turn of play. Before we get too far into this project, we gotta set our expectations. For this specific project, the objective is to get an electric tractor that can tow a trailer around for 1 to 2 hours a day and then charge overnight. It's definitely not going to be spending the entire day plowing fields or doing really power-hungry work like that. There's a reason electric tractors haven't taken over yet the way electric cars are. According to a dyno test, this tractor slurps up 11.7 liters of diesel fuel per hour. Now, 11.7 liters of diesel fuel has 125 kilowatt hours of energy. A battery that big is almost double what you'd find in a Tesla Model 3, and that's only to run for 1 hour. So having said that, let's get started. The first task is to remove the engine, which means the first subtask is to remove the loader since it's attached to the engine. And that means the first subtask is to drain the hydraulic fluid. I'm draining it into this bucket, which I only just realized has a dead bird in it. I better blur that out. To make sure I get all the fluid out, I'm just going to run the engine for a few seconds. Now I can remove the hydraulic pump, and this pump only powers the hydraulics for the loader. I might reattach the loader in the future, but it would need to be driven off a separate electric hydraulic pump rather than just being hooked up to the main motor. This tractor actually has a separate pump for power steering, another one for the 3-point hitch, and if you include the fuel pump and coolant pump, that's a total of 5 pumps. The electric tractor will just have the 1 pump for the 3-point hitch, or for the math nerds, 1/5 as much pumpage as the diesel tractor. The 3-point hitch pump is actually built into the transmission, which is pretty convenient because it means I can just replace the engine with a motor, and the 3-point hitch will magically still work. As I'm removing the exhaust and muffler, I have to be extra careful. You see, the muffler doesn't just silence the noise, it actually stores it. One wrong move and you could release over 50 years of trapped exhaust noise all at once, deafening everyone within a 100-kilometer radius. And of course, I couldn't just not try running the engine at this point. This old seat will not be missed. I feel like I'm gonna get butt tetanus every time I sit on it. I guess there was more fuel in that tank than I thought. Good thing there's already some spill absorber on the ground from the last incident. I can't seem to get these ball joints undone on this steering push rod thing, and I'm gonna have to extend it anyway, so I'm just gonna cut it. We won't be needing this anymore. Actually, that's a lie, the transmission still has oil. It does seem a little ironic that in the process of converting this tractor to electric, I've removed both a battery and an electric motor. But it's like they say, you gotta spend money to make money. Now it's finally time to remove the engine. Psych, I was just testing you. Gotta undo this last bolt, and now it's time to remove the engine. The way this transmission works is there are 2 coaxial shafts. The outer one is always spinning when the engine is running, and it powers the PTO and the 3-point hitch. The inner shaft only spins when the clutch is released, and that's what powers the wheels. For simplicity though, I'm just going to connect these 2 shafts together, and if you ever want to run the PTO without turning the wheels, you can just put the transmission in neutral. Speaking of motors, look what just arrived. Let's test it out on my adjustable lab power supply. I designed and 3D printed this alignment tool to help me assemble the motor adapter, and then I printed it again because I accidentally set the first one on fire. Now to remove the 3D printed alignment tool, I drilled it out on my lathe. Oh, did I mention I got a lathe? There really was no other way to do this. I pretty much had to buy the machine. Next, it was time for a stop at the local scrapyard to buy some metal. And this place is awesome. You can get metal in all shapes and sizes, and it costs an order of magnitude less than at any other store. Look at that absolute unit of a compressor. They've got pallets of batteries too, just not the kind we want. I ended up getting 2 steel plates 3/8 of an inch thick and 3 steel channels. I was originally planning to cut out this giant hole with the oxyacetylene torch, but the acetylene hose sprung a leak and I'm not really in the mood to explode today, so instead I got this gigantic hole saw, which I hate.
One eternity later.
Well, that was brutal. I just spent over an hour drilling a single hole. You might even say it was boring. I should really get a plasma cutter. One of the most annoying aspects of this project is that everything is just too darn heavy to move. So, I got an engine hoist on Facebook Marketplace for $100. Hopefully it doesn't break.
A nice move forward in the field. That race car right now a little...
By the way, when I started this project it was summer, and now, well, it isn't. Thankfully in the greenhouse we can burn liquefied dinosaurs for heat. Ow, fuck. The extension's done. Time to weld it in. If I didn't tell you, I bet you wouldn't even know where the extension was put in. Nothing exploded. That's a good sign. I can't believe everything's just working. That's literally never happened to me before. So with basically no load on the motor, we're drawing about 20 amps at 12 volts, which works out to 240 watts. Another day, another dollar. I'm removing these 3D printed pieces and swapping them out for metal ones that I made. Focus. Time for the first ever test drive of the E65. By the way, that's what I'm calling it now. The motor can handle up to 72 volts, but for this test, I'm just going to limit it to a 12 volt battery. I'm sure you can tell by the excitement in my voice that this was a monumental moment. The last time the tractor drove was when it had a diesel engine, and now it was driving again. Unfortunately, the fun was short-lived, because it wasn't long before the 12-volt battery died. I mean, it's no surprise, lead-acid batteries are practically ancient technology. Actually, I should fact-check that. 1859. Okay, I guess that's technically not ancient, but lead-acid is the oldest rechargeable battery in existence? You think I'm gonna use the oldest rechargeable battery? Wrong. That means it's time to build a battery. I just got a delivery. You know it's gotta be something cool when it comes with stickers like this on it. Now I need to dissect these modules and pull out all the cells. Each of these 4 metal boxes contains 60 lithium-ion cells in a 10S6P configuration. This means that each module has a voltage of 36 volts and a capacity of 48 amp hours. I'm planning to combine 2 of these modules in series to create a 72 volt 48 amp hour pack. I estimate the motor will draw about 2 kilowatts of power while driving around, so my planned battery should allow for 1 to 2 hours of runtime. I designed this enclosure in Fusion 360 and then ordered it from a sheet metal manufacturing company. I got it powder coated in what they call fire red, which I think should add at least 5 kilowatt hours. The battery needs to be able to supply at least 400 amps because that's the current level that I decided I want it to be able to supply. But trying to find a BMS that can handle 400 amps has proven difficult. BMS stands for Battery Management System, and it's basically a module that helps prevent this from happening. So what I've decided to do is just use an off-the-shelf BMS that can handle 60 amps, but instead of drawing current through the BMS directly, the BMS will simply control a contactor, and the contactor will supply the main current. Because the BMS controls the contactor, it'll still be able to shut the battery off when the voltage gets too low or too high, or the temperature is outside the acceptable range, or any of those protections that it has built in, except for overcurrent protection, because it doesn't know how much current is being drawn by the load. So to make sure we still have protection against short circuits, I've added a 400 amp fuse inside the battery. Then I wired up all the cells to the BMS and secured down the wiring harness with high temperature Kapton tape. And finally, I created this series jumper out of aluminum, which connects the 2 36 volt modules in series to create 72 volts nominal. I still have to get a dedicated charger, so for now I just hooked it up to an adjustable power supply with the voltage limit set to 84 volts and the current limit set to the maximum of 3 amps. I've got this giant heating element from an electric furnace which should draw about 12 to 13 amps from the battery. It's hooked up to the battery through a current sensor which is being read by a Raspberry Pi. Out in the garage, I can remotely access the Raspberry Pi from my phone using SSH. I made a simple Python logging script which takes a current sample every second and integrates all these readings to give the total number of amp hours pulled out of the battery. After a few hours, I got this sick graph, which shows how the current slowly decreases as the voltage drops, and also shows that the total capacity of the battery is about 45 amp hours, which means these battery cells are almost in new condition. But enough nerd talk, let's do some more metalworking. After all, this battery's not going to support itself. The motor controller has a lot of input capacitance, which means when you hook it up to the battery, there's a big spark from the inrush current. To avoid this, you should use a pre-charge resistor. Eventually I'll have this installed across the contactor, but for now I just have to pre-charge it manually. You know it's fully charged when you don't feel a tingle across the resistor anymore. I made a little 3D printed throttle knob so that I could very slowly and carefully ramp up the motor speed and make sure everything is still working. Then I took it for a little rip just to make sure everything is still mechanically sound, and now I can start focusing on more of the user interface, user experience things, or as they say in the business, AX. I finally got a proper charger so I don't have to use the adjustable power supply anymore, and I did a bunch of electrical wiring, but I didn't film that because it's boring. But what's not boring is this control panel I 3D printed. It's got a button to turn the motor controller on, a button to turn the headlights on, which aren't installed yet. The knob on the side is for the throttle. It has a 12-volt outlet, and it has 2 USB charging ports. As expected, the PTO still works. And the 3-point hitch still works. Remember when I did the speed test and the diesel tractor got up to 24 kilometers per hour? I haven't forgotten about that. I probably never will, to be honest. So let's do that test again now with the electric tractor. So the highest of those 2 runs was 37 kilometers per hour. I double checked with my friend who's really good at math, and they confirmed that 37 is greater than 24. The peak current draw during that test was 239 amps, and since the battery was fully charged, that works out to 20 kilowatts. Well, there you have it. The 65 is now fully converted and ready for the real test, spending its days working on the farm. That is why I did this, by the way. My friend had this old tractor and asked me to convert it to electric. Without their support, there's no way I would have been able to do this project. Thanks for sticking around to see the transformation. I still have a list of things to do. I need to install a seat because right now I'm still sitting on the transmission case, add an electronic clutch pedal to make it easier to hook up implements and make precise maneuvers. I need to add headlights. I want to make a little screen with a battery state of charge monitor, get a faster charger and a charge limiter so we can charge it only up to 80% to prolong the battery life. I've got to do a range test, also an efficiency test in each gear, add power steering, add an AC inverter to power tools and stuff, and maybe even a solar roof. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, consider smashing that subscribe button and obliterating the bell icon. And if you'd like to support the channel, I just made a Patreon page. Links for all that are in the description. Alright, that's it for this one. Now I've got to head to an appointment for a tetanus shot.